hopefully this is working. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Today I'm just going to run through the rationalising surds topic that I did with a few of you in class, but I'm just going to run through the answers, and hopefully those who haven't done it, if you could pause the question before and have a go at it, and then see if you can compare your answers with what I got. So hopefully you can see the screen now. So we're going to be looking at the topic of rationalising surds. It is in Pure 1, Chapter 1, and this whole test should take about 8 minutes. So question 1 reads as something like this. It says, express root 80 plus 30 over root 5. And when it means express, it just wants it in its simplest form. So in order to tackle this, I'm going to split it up, and I'm going to try and sort out what root 80 could look like. And then I'll think about 30 over root 5 a little bit later on. So root 80, I'm going to think about two square numbers, or a square number, which goes into root 80. And if you are thinking of your square numbers, you should know that 16 and 5 multiply together to make root 80. We can, of course, split this up into root 16 and root 5, and root 16 is 4. So I can rewrite root 80 as 4 root 5. Looking at 30 over root 5, I want to multiply this by something to rationalise the denominator, but I can't change the value of it. So therefore, the only thing that is going to work is root 5 over 5, because as we spoke about in lesson, this is equivalent to 1. So multiplying by 1 won't change the property. 30 multiplied by root 5 is 30 root 5. And root 5 multiplied by root 5 just gives us 5. So therefore, 30 divided by 5 is 6 root 5. These are my two parts. What I need to do with these is add them together from the question. So I'm just looking at 4 root 5 and 6 root 5, which in total would give me 10 root 5. So that would be 3 marks for that question. You'd get 1 mark for working out 4 root 5, 1 mark for 6 root 5, and finally, the one most people forget is to actually do the sum and add them together. So I'd like to check your answers, see if it's something similar to that, please. And then we'd move on to question 2. Question 2 says express 1 plus root 5 over 2 plus 5 root 5. And again, we want this in its simplest form. Now looking at this, you can see that we've got a fraction as a denominator, and that's not really very useful. So I'm going to first of all look at this 2 plus 5 root 5, which is the denominator, and I'm going to try and sort that out first. So I know that if I multiply this by root 5 over root 5, because again, that's our denominator, and we know that's true because it's equal to 1, that's going to give me 2 plus, well, 5 root 5 over root 5 times root 5 is just 5. So this is just 2 plus root 5. So I've sorted out the bottom bit, so I'm going to rewrite my question now. So this is actually 1 plus root 5 over 2 plus root 5. Now I've got that, I'm going to then think about how I can rationalise something which contains both an irrational and rational number as a denominator. And the way we looked at in class was to multiply by the conjugate, which is turning this denominator into a difference of 2 squares. I'm not going to worry about the top for now. I'm just going to put 1 plus root 5 and make it with a bracket with 2 minus root 5. I'm just going to think about the denominator. Because it's going to be a difference of 2 squares, this negative 2 root 5 and this positive 2 root 5 are going to cancel out. So I'm just going to get 4 and then a negative 5, because 2 times 2 is 4, root 5 times root 5 is 5, and then it's going to be a negative 5. Good. Looking at this then, multiplying out the top, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times negative root 5 is minus root 5, root 5 times 2 is plus 2 root 5, and root 5 to minus 5. 2 minus 5 is going to be negative 3. Oops, sorry, it's negative 1 on the bottom, isn't it? 2 minus root this 2, sorry, minus this 5 is negative 3. Minus root 5 plus 2 root 5 is going to be plus root 5, and that's all over negative 1. This is a perfectly acceptable answer. It just looks a little bit ugly, so I'm going to multiply through by this negative 1. So that's going to give me positive 3 minus root 5 as my final answer. And again, the marks you'd get for this question, you'd get a mark for working out that it's going to be 2 plus root 5. You'd get your second mark for this step here, where we are looking at 2 minus root 5, and you'd get your final mark for completing it. Good, just check your answers for that one. And then lastly, this was the one that caught a few people out in the end because we're using it in a context. So write root 80 in the form of c root 5, where c is a positive constant. Well, I can just do that straight away because we've done something similar. Root 80, we know that that is root 16 times root 5. I knew it was going to be a 5 anyway because it was here. Root 16, as previously mentioned, was 4. So for my first mark, I can just work out 4 root 5. A rectangle has a length of 1 plus root 5 centimeters and an area of root 80 centimeters. Calculate the width. Okay, so the area is length times width. So therefore, if I want the width, I need to do my area divided by my length, which would give me my width. My length is 1 plus root 5 and my area is root 80. So therefore, I'm looking at root 80 divided by 1 plus root 5, which is width. So again, I've got this fraction that I want to try and rationalise. I've already know what root 80 is, so I'm just going to try and save myself a bit of time by rewriting that as 4 root 5. I'm sure that's going to help me at one point. And this is 1 plus root 5. And I'm going to multiply this by 1, subtract root 5. So looking at this, the top 1 times by 4 root 5 is just 4 root 5. And 4 root 5 times negative root 5, that's going to be negative 4 times by this 5. So it's going to be subtracting 20. And along the bottom, I've got the difference of 2 squares. It's going to be 1, take away 5, which is going to be negative 4. So this would be my second mark. Sorry, my second mark would be for using this, and my third mark would be for getting 4 root 5 minus 20 over negative 4. As we can see, the numerator is all a multiple of 4, so I'm going to divide through by this negative 4. So 4 root 5 divided by negative 4 is going to be negative root 5, and negative 20 divided by negative 4 is going to be positive 5. And I'm just going to make that look a little bit prettier by putting 5, take away root 5. So they are the 3 questions that we answered in lesson. So hopefully those of you who haven't done it can go through this, and yeah, thank you. Apparently I can't close the recording, so I'm going to